So there's over 100 gifts in Windblown, and with the recent gift rework update, it kind of changed pretty much most of them in some way, shape, or form. Some just got little number tweaks, a couple got a couple cute icons that tell you what they actually do, and then a lot of them got completely reworked, including some new additional gifts in the game. So what I'm going to be doing today is just going to be going over some of my favorites of the gift rework, some of the zeros that suddenly became heroes, some of my new favorite gifts that are going to help you out in your runs, just like they help me out in mine. So let's get into it. So there's a lot of flashy gifts that do a lot of very interesting things, but one of the big changes that came with the gift rework update is changing the dodged gifts. They used to be individual, dodging gives brutality, dodging freezes, dodging does X, Y, and Z, but now they've kind of merged them together. So we have enraged dodge, which dodging activates brutality for 4 seconds and freezes. And then, of course, the additional kind of like passive bonus of a 10% chance to automatically dodge any damage. That part is not too important. Really, the part I'm really happy with is the brutality and the freeze combined. Same thing over in crippling dodge. Even though I don't like crippling dodge as much, it's goo and curse. I much prefer enraged dodge, but really they're both quite good and they're both leagues miles ahead of what they were, where they used to be broken up individually. Dodging applies curse, dodging applies goo. Now that they're combined, I think this is a drastic improvement. Now, I'm not saying this is gonna, win you the run single-handedly, but considering what it was, like every dodge gift used to be essentially like a 0 out of 10, like a 2 out of 10 at most. And now they're pretty solid. They're like a 6 or 7 out of 10, especially like if you're running brutality, why not throw in an enraged dodge? If you're running goo, why not get crippling dodge and you get a benefit from the curse as well. So for me, the dodge gifts are probably going to be one of the first ones that I really enjoy, and I definitely think you should keep an eye on. Now, moving up in the list, it has to be Survivor. Survivor is a very interesting gift because at the surface, it's like, okay, saves you from death once and heals you for 100%, destroyed when used. You're like, okay, what's the big deal? Well, it used to be way worse because it only healed you, I think it was 50% health, and you couldn't destroy it. Like once you used it, it couldn't be destroyed. It stayed in your inventory, taking up a gift slot, even if it was used. Now the benefit is not only do you know when it's used because it literally disappears, but it lets you pick itself up again later on. So let's say you're doing endless where things do quite a lot of damage and there's a ton of enemies on the screen. Maybe you get a little complacent, you slip up. At least you have Survivor, heals you back to 100% health, and it deletes itself, giving you the chance to pick it up again later on. This is a very like minor change on the surface, but this, it propelled itself up in the gift rankings, at least for me, just because you're able to reuse it multiple times in a run. Plus, healing you to full health is pretty nice. Saves you from death. That saves you from ending the run. Really good if you're going for some of those endless skins that take a few loops, right? In Stormy or Tempestuous, Tiger, and Rabbit, those skins take a little bit of time, an hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours, depending on your pace. So it's nice to have this in the back pocket just in case, fatigue starts to get to you and you slip up. This is perfect. Plus, you can pick it up again down the line. A pretty high chance of that depending on how your memory deck is structured. Now, you've probably noticed a trend that a lot of these gifts I'm talking about are pretty much like general purpose, if you will, right? It doesn't necessarily correspond to a specific build. I think these are just great gifts, or made even greater now with the gift rework, and certainly at least it was least, and now it's certainly not least. Protection. Protection used to give you invincibility for one hit per stage, and as you can see, it is completely different now. It protects you from a hit and makes you invincible for 5 seconds, and it recharges after 20 kills. So especially if you're in endless and there's just a ton of enemies, you're going to be getting this back pretty much in no time. It is fantastic. The invincibility for 5 seconds is pretty much great just to get you out of any trouble that you might be facing, especially if you're like in the incubator and you're fighting those tuning fork enemies with the massive AoEs. 5 seconds should give you enough time to kind of get yourself reacquainted, get a handle on the situation, and you'll be able to recharge it pretty quickly because it recharges after 20 kills. Protection used to be only I don't even know what you'd use it for. I mean, I used it for my hitless runs when I was doing cataclysmic hitless, and I thought it was just kind of a gimmick thing, nice to have because I'm doing a specific challenge run. Now I think everyone should really pick this up, especially if you're going on an endless, because it gives you just another, kind of barrier, if you will, another safety net. Same thing with Survivor. But honestly, I think protection is a little bit better than Survivor just because it recharges so quickly, especially, since it's only 20 kills. So protection for me, I mean, that went from being like a very niche thing that I only take on, hitless runs or maybe when I'm looping to now being a pretty common staple in my endless runs. I love it. So we've been talking about reworked gifts so far in the video, but now I'm going to talk about some new gifts. So you might have noticed we have Overwhelm gifts now, and Overwhelm is its own new thing where hits that Overwhelm deal 125% additional total damage, and you have the whole family down here, right? Each of them give you a little chance to overwhelm, just depending on the condition of the gift, and there's some hexes that correspond as well. Now, Overwhelm in of itself, like this whole category, is pretty much amazing, but I wanted to signal one specific gift out of the bunch, and it's going to be, for me, Overwhelming Afflictions. Now, if you look at it, every stack of Burn, Bleed, and Curse on a target gives 1% chance to overwhelm with weapons and trinkets against that target. So it's against the specific target. Now, at a glance, this may not seem too good because, you may have a curse trap that gives you 10%. Maybe you have a Sirocco Fiery Claws. If you get max burn, that's going to be 15%. But later on in your runs, especially if you want to build around this specific gift, you can get a ridiculous amount of overwhelm percentage, like 75%, 80%, if you're just, kind of keeping an eye out on things, right? If you have an affix that applies burn, maybe you have another affix that applies curse, and then you have Katars as a weapon, or you have a fishing rod because the fishing rod alter applies bleed, or you just have, Sirocco, fiery claws. Like there's so many things that can contribute to this. This is a fantastic way to get overwhelmed no matter what weapon or build you may be running, and it's really satisfying to get all three because eventually you'll get burn, bleed, and curse in your runs. It's just a matter of getting the affixes and just keeping an eye out for that specific weapon or trinket that will give you the missing component. Plus, you throw in some of the other overwhelm gifts or an overwhelm hex, and you'll have 100% overwhelm. And trust me, I did a run where I got over 100% overwhelm, and that sound effect was dopamine to the max. That sound effect, when you get an overwhelm hit, just constantly going off that high pitched, like metallic clank, if you will, it was heaven. It was paradise. And really what made it all possible was Overwhelming Afflictions. I highly recommend it because it just gives another use to something that's already great. All of these things, Burn, Bleed, and Curse, they're not bad by themselves, but and you do want to have them in your runs, but this just adds another layer on top of it without substituting anything out. You can have Burn and you can have Overwhelm. Same thing with Bleed and Curse. I love Overwhelming Afflictions. Now, before I get to my final spot, my number one favorite gift since the gift rework, I do gotta give a little bit of a shout out to the hexes, the curses, because Motion Twin went crazy reworking these, making them kind of unique and interesting. Random chrysalis hexes. I'm sure you've seen those. These are just random gifts that are can kind of break your run if you're lucky. But then you also have the rest. You have a brutality hex. We were talking about brutality a bit earlier. I don't have a specific hex that I really want to shout out per se, but I do just want to say hexes now, curses, they're pretty much always fantastic, I would say. Not 100% of the time, but they're really attractive as an option to pick up. The only one I haven't really done yet, which I really want to do, is do a simple hex run where I just can no longer alter attack and I'm just relying on my weapons. I don't think in theory it's going to be that strong, but it is interesting because it is 100%. But all of these are amazing. Um, Maybe corrosive. I haven't had a chance to try that yet, but most of them are insane, especially Overwhelm Hex. That is what put me over the edge in my Overwhelming Afflictions run. So yeah, curses get the runner-up or honorary spot before we go to the great reveal, my number one new favorite gift. And what do you know? We're back in Overwhelm territory. Now, I really like Overwhelming Afflictions, but Assassinate has a special place in my heart. And the only reason why it kind of beats out Overwhelming Afflictions is because the original Assassinate was complete trash. It gave you 160, I think it was, percent extra damage on your first hit against an enemy. And to be honest, that wasn't quite useful. Now, your first hit against a target is always going to overwhelm, and then subsequent attacks have a 25% chance to overwhelm for 2 seconds. This is amazing. This is so satisfying just to know your first hit is always going to be an overwhelming hit, which is a nice source of overwhelm. Plus, it opens up so much room for like a kind of a fade, a one-shot build where you just come out of the bushes and just one-shot overwhelm enemies with the rest of your build. And of course, it complements the other overwhelming gifts very nicely too. So for me, just the glow up, right? The zero to hero story for Assassinate. It warms my cold, dead heart. I love Assassinate now, and I just love Overwhelm in general. Compare some of these gifts together, and you have an amazing run going. I just gotta give props to Motion Twin. There's just so many gifts now that are viable, and I haven't even had a chance to try them all yet. For example, I really want to try Corrosive. Corrosive is like a new family, if you will. It kind of takes destructive trinkets is now corrosive trinkets. Same thing with this. This got changed as well. So I just really want to try a corrosive and see if I can get a good build. Plus, working with some hexes to make some magic. But really, that's going to be it for the video. As one person, I can't possibly test all the hundreds of gifts with all the different weapons, with all the different trinkets, and there's gonna be new builds uncovered as we all jump into the vortex and play. So if you have a new favorite gift, a new favorite build, right, that you've discovered, please let me know in the comments so that way we can all try it in our runs. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I'll see you all in the vortex.